If two souls are truly destined, they'll always find their way back. What's meant for you will never miss you, and what misses you was never meant for you. This timeless truth holds a special kind of power when it comes to love and destiny. At Spiritual Wisdom, we believe that some connections are written in the soul before they ever manifest in this world. In today's video, we'll explore Carl Jung's insights on soulmates, synchronicity, and the deep spiritual bond that pulls two people back together no matter the time, distance, or challenges. If you've ever felt an unexplainable connection with someone, or wondered why certain souls keep returning to your life, this message is for you. Let us know in the comments. Do you believe in divine timing and destined love? Your voice matters. Share your story, and let's grow together in truth, love, and spiritual awakening. 1. Destined love is guided by a higher force. Some connections defy time, logic, and even distance. No matter how far two souls drift apart, or how much life changes around them, there's a pull that never really fades. Carl Jung once said that when two personalities meet, something deeper is set into motion, they are transformed. This transformation doesn't just happen on the surface, it unfolds within the unconscious, guided by a force greater than reason. When love is destined, it doesn't die. It evolves, waits, and returns at the right moment, not because we chase it, but because the soul never forgets what it's truly aligned with. Even in separation, a silent thread holds these souls together. Through heartbreak, silence, and distance, something remains unspoken, but deeply felt. It's not always easy to explain, especially in a world that teaches us to move on, to let go. But sometimes, you don't choose to hold on something in. You simply knows that it's not over. That knowing isn't weakness, it's intuition. Carl Jung believed our unconscious mind speaks through symbols, synchronicities, and emotional truths that logic can't explain. So when two people cross paths again, after seasons of growth and struggle, it's not coincidence, it's the soul remembering its unfinished story. Life has a mysterious way of orchestrating reunions. You think you're over someone, and suddenly their favorite song plays on the radio. You open a book, and a line jumps out that reminds you of a conversation you once had with them. You bump into them on a street you weren't supposed to walk down. These are not random occurrences. Jung called it synchronicity, meaningful coincidences that reveal a deeper order at work. When these signs appear, they often carry a message that love isn't just an emotion, it's a spiritual path that brings us closer to truth, healing, and wholeness. A woman named Maya once fell deeply in love with a man named Elias. In their 20s, they were passionate, inseparable, and raw. But life demanded more than love could carry at that time. They parted ways. He moved across the country. She buried herself in her career. 10 years later, Maya walked into a bookstore, and there he was, holding the same book she had come to find. Time had changed them, but the energy between them was untouched. They weren't picking up where they left off. They were beginning again as two people who had grown into the versions of themselves that were finally ready to meet. Destined love is not about perfect timing or flawless communication. It's about growth, transformation, and trust in the unseen. The soul doesn't measure time the way the mind does. It waits, it calls, it guides. And when two people have done the inner work, when they've faced their shadows, healed their wounds, and stepped into their purpose, they're drawn back to each other, not out of need, but out of divine alignment. There is no need to force or chase. What is meant will always return. So even if you've experienced a separation that left you questioning everything, understand that separation can be sacred. It creates space for becoming. Carl Jung taught us that unless we make the unconscious conscious, it will continue to direct our lives, and we'll simply call it fate. But when we become conscious of our wounds, our patterns, our truth, we begin to attract not just love, but destiny. The soul doesn't forget what it came here to feel, and love, when it's real, becomes the catalyst for awakening. It is never lost. It is only preparing to return in a deeper, more conscious form. Have you ever felt like someone was placed in your life by destiny? If so, share your story in the comments below. We'd love to hear how fate brought you back together. If you haven't yet experienced it, comment, "I believe in divine timing," to open your heart to the magic of destined love. 2. Soul connections activate archetypes and deep recognition. When two souls are truly destined, their meeting is more than coincidence. It's a cosmic reawakening. According to Carl Jung, this connection stirs something ancient within the unconscious. It activates inner archetypes, particularly the anima and animus, our inner feminine and masculine energies. This isn't just attraction or familiarity. It's symbolic. It's spiritual wisdom in motion. You meet someone, and suddenly, you're not looking at a stranger. You're looking at a reflection of your own soul. The bond feels timeless, like a memory returning from lifetimes ago. You don't fall in love. You remember love. That recognition is not random. It's the unconscious saying, "Pay attention, this person mirrors something essential within you." Jung's teachings suggest that when the anima or animus is projected onto another, it awakens deep emotional resonance. It's why a glance, a voice, or a shared silence can feel sacred. The soul doesn't see people as they appear on the surface. It sees energy. It feels vibration. And when two destined souls meet, their energies don't just connect, they unlock hidden parts of each other. But this kind of love is rarely easy. That's because it's not meant to comfort, it's meant to transform. These relationships trigger the process of individuation. They pull unconscious patterns, fears, and wounds to the surface. The other becomes a mirror, reflecting both our beauty and our brokenness. This is where spiritual wisdom demands courage. The relationship might bring pain, confusion, even separation, but beneath it all, it is guiding both souls toward inner wholeness, not through dependency, but through deep self-recognition. Even if such a connection experiences distance or ends in the physical realm, it never truly disappears. Energy doesn't vanish. It evolves. The bond lingers in the unconscious, whispering through dreams, signs, synchronicities. Jung believed that what is real always finds a way. So if two people are meant to walk together again, life will create the path. The universe does not rush, but it never forgets. This is the kind of knowing that quiets the need to chase. You begin to trust the rhythm of divine timing. There are countless modern stories that echo this truth. Two people meet when they're young, unprepared for the depth of their bond. Life pulls them apart. But years later, when they've grown, healed, and awakened, they find each other again. Not because they searched, but because the connection never ended. It was waiting for the right moment to return. This is not fantasy. It's spiritual alignment. And it reminds us that love isn't just about timing, it's about readiness. The soul does not measure time the way the mind does. It only knows resonance. So even when silence stretches between two hearts, something deeper continues. A thread, invisible yet unbreakable, holds the connection alive. And when both souls have walked far enough to meet in truth, not projection, not need love returns, not to repeat the past, but to create something whole, something conscious, something real. This is the wisdom Carl Jung left us. Love is not always about holding on, it's about becoming. And when two people become who they were meant to be, they will find each other again. Have you ever felt an unexplainable connection that awakens something deep within you? If you're ready to explore the inner symbols that guide true love, comment below. I embrace my archetypes to begin this journey of deep soul recognition. 3. Love mirrors the self and triggers the individuation process. When you meet a soul you're truly destined for, something profound begins to unfold, not just in the relationship, but within yourself. This isn't ordinary love. It's not about surface attraction or fleeting romance. It's about deep reflection. They don't just hold your hand, they hold a mirror. Through them, you begin to see both the brilliance and the darkness you carry. This is what Carl Jung called projection of the unconscious parts of yourself, both shadow and light, being cast onto another. It's not random, it's sacred. Their presence activates your spiritual awakening by revealing parts of you that you've ignored, hidden, or misunderstood. And once those hidden parts are stirred, you can no longer remain asleep to your truth. You might find yourself overwhelmed by the intensity pulled between magnetic connection and emotional chaos. One moment, you're floating in their light. The next, you're face to face with your deepest insecurities. That's because this kind of connection doesn't just soothe your soul, it stretches it. It challenges the illusions you've built to protect yourself. It strips away who you thought you were, so you can remember who you really are. And in that tension, in that raw emotional exposure, the process of individuation begins. Jung believed individuation is the journey toward becoming whole, not perfect, not polished, but fully yourself. And relationships, especially ones that feel destined, are often the spiritual battleground where this journey takes place. In the eyes of this person, you might see your childhood wounds, your unhealed fears, your forgotten dreams. You may project your longing for security, your desire for validation, or your craving to be chosen. But slowly, through emotional storms and divine clarity, you begin to see they were never meant to fix you. They were sent to awaken you, to call you back to your center, to ignite your transformation from the inside out. Love in this form is spiritual alchemy. It burns away the false layers, revealing the gold of your essence underneath. This love forces you to confront your own emotional maturity, your attachment styles, your boundaries, and your capacity for truth. It doesn't allow you to hide. It asks for your authenticity. It's not there to fulfill your fantasy. It's there to elevate your consciousness. Each trigger becomes a lesson. Each argument becomes a mirror. Each reunion becomes a reminder that something beyond logic is guiding the two of you together, not for comfort, but for soul expansion. And this is the essence of spiritual awakening through love. Realizing that the person you thought you needed was actually pointing you back to the person you came here to become. If you're ready to embrace the mirror of love and grow into your true self, comment below. I welcome my individuation journey. Let this be your first step toward conscious transformation. 4. Conflict and shadow work are essential in true love. Real love doesn't come to comfort you. It comes to awaken you. When two souls are truly destined to be together, their connection isn't about avoiding storms. It's about learning to heal through them. Conflict, discomfort, and emotional triggers are not signs of dysfunction. They are sacred invitations to grow. According to Carl Jung, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. And this is exactly what destined love does. It brings the unconscious to the surface so it can no longer control you from the shadows. Jealousy, fear, the need to control, or the pain of abandonment, these emotions may rise in the presence of someone who touches your soul. But these aren't red flags telling you to leave. They're mirrors reflecting the parts of yourself you've buried, rejected, or denied. Instead of idealizing your partner, true love calls you to see them clearly, with all their flaws, while also facing your own. You begin to realize that love isn't about perfection, it's about presence. It's not about getting what you want. It's about discovering who you are when love challenges you. In the language of Carl Jung, this is shadow work. And no other relationship will trigger the shadow more than the one meant to transform you. When two people are meant for each other, their love will reach into old wounds and ask them to be healed. It will force both people to confront their deepest fears, not to hurt one another, but to reveal what's ready to be made whole. The pain that rises is not a punishment, it's a portal. It means the soul is ready for growth. And growth often comes disguised as conflict. Take, for example, a modern couple who truly loved each other, but constantly triggered one another's insecurities. At first, they saw this as a sign they weren't compatible. But when they stepped back, they realized the relationship was bringing old childhood wounds to the surface. His fear of being invisible, her fear of not being enough. Instead of walking away, they chose the harder path, to stay, to speak honestly, to seek healing together. That's what spiritual wisdom teaches us. Love that's real is rarely easy, but it's always transformative. Every time we get close to someone who sees us, our ego reacts, our shadow resists. But the soul knows. The soul recognizes that this person has come not just to love us, but to awaken us. They're not here to complete you, but to reveal where you're still fragmented. And when you stop running from that discomfort, when you breathe through it, lean into it, and explore it, you begin to change. That's the spiritual awakening that Carl Jung spoke of. A journey into the self, guided by the mirror of love. So, conflict is not the end. It is the beginning of deeper intimacy. Emotional triggers aren't threats. They are openings. And the person who brings them out in you may not be your destroyer, but your healer. Destined love doesn't just soothe your heart, it rearranges it, reshapes it, and makes room for the truth. Not the fantasy of love, but the reality of it. Not the image of perfection, but the essence of wholeness. That is where real love begins. If this message resonated with you, leave a like, subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss insights like this. Comment below. I'm ready to face my shadow with love, to affirm your journey toward healing and authentic connection. 4. Conflict and shadow work are essential in true love. Real love doesn't come to comfort you. It comes to awaken you. When two souls are truly destined to be together, their connection isn't about avoiding storms. It's about learning to heal through them. Conflict, discomfort, and emotional triggers are not signs of dysfunction. They are sacred invitations to grow. According to Carl Jung, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. And this is exactly what destined love does. It brings the unconscious to the surface so it can no longer control you from the shadows. Jealousy, fear, the need to control, or the pain of abandonment, these emotions may rise in the presence of someone who touches your soul. But these aren't red flags telling you to leave. They're mirrors reflecting the parts of yourself you've buried, rejected, or denied. Instead of idealizing your partner, true love calls you to see them clearly, with all their flaws, while also facing your own. You begin to realize that love isn't about perfection, it's about presence. It's not about getting what you want. It's about discovering who you are when love challenges you. In the language of Carl Jung, this is shadow work. And no other relationship will trigger the shadow more than the one meant to transform you. When two people are meant for each other, their love will reach into old wounds and ask them to be healed. It will force both people to confront their deepest fears, not to hurt one another, but to reveal what's ready to be made whole. The pain that rises is not a punishment, it's a portal. It means the soul is ready for growth. And growth often comes disguised as conflict. Take, for example, a modern couple who truly loved each other, but constantly triggered one another's insecurities. At first, they saw this as a sign they weren't compatible. But when they stepped back, they realized the relationship was bringing old childhood wounds to the surface. His fear of being invisible, her fear of not being enough. Instead of walking away, they chose the harder path, to stay, to speak honestly, to seek healing together. That's what spiritual wisdom teaches us. Love that's real is rarely easy, but it's always transformative. Every time we get close to someone who sees us, our ego reacts, our shadow resists, but the soul knows. The soul recognizes that this person has come not just to love us, but to awaken us. They're not here to complete you, but to reveal where you're still fragmented. And when you stop running from that discomfort, when you breathe through it, lean into it, and explore it, you begin to change. That's the spiritual awakening that Carl Jung spoke of. A journey into the self, guided by the mirror of love. So, conflict is not the end. It is the beginning of deeper intimacy. Emotional triggers aren't threats. They are openings. And the person who brings them out in you may not be your destroyer, but your healer. Destined love doesn't just soothe your heart, it rearranges it, reshapes it, and makes room for the truth. Not the fantasy of love, but the reality of it. Not the image of perfection, but the essence of wholeness. That is where real love begins. If this message resonated with you, leave a like, subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss insights like this. Comment below. I'm ready to face my shadow with love, to affirm your journey toward healing and authentic connection. 5. Separation is part of the spiritual journey. Physical or emotional distance isn't the death of true love. It's part of its sacred unfolding. In the realm of spiritual wisdom, separation is not abandonment. It is an invitation. It invites both souls to dive deep within themselves, to confront their own shadows, and to awaken what was once buried under dependency, fear, or illusion. The absence of the other becomes a mirror, reflecting where one still needs to grow, to heal, and to remember their own wholeness. True love doesn't demand constant closeness. It demands depth, and that depth is often found in solitude. Carl Jung spoke of the self as the guiding force of individuation, the process of becoming whole. When two people are truly meant to be, their separation is not a mistake. Time and space are not obstacles, but instruments used by the self to cultivate the strength, clarity, and inner maturity required for sacred union. Just as seasons come and go, spiritual bonds go through cycles: connection, separation, transformation, and if destiny allows, reunion. But only after both individuals have faced the parts of themselves that once made love feel impossible. Growth doesn't happen when things are easy. It happens in the silence after goodbye, in the tears that fall when memories return, and in the courage it takes to keep going alone. Love that is written by the soul is not a straight line. It's a spiral, leading both souls back to themselves before they can return to each other. In that sacred in-between, they shed their illusions. They learn to love themselves without needing another to fill the void. And when they finally meet again, they do so from a place of truth, not fear. They no longer cling, but choose freely, consciously, and wholly. This is spiritual wisdom, knowing that love does not disappear in absence. It ripens. It deepens. It returns in divine timing, not to rescue you, but to reflect the wholeness you found within. Just as the butterfly cannot emerge without its cocoon, soul connections cannot evolve without separation. The very pain that once felt unbearable becomes the soil in which deeper love can bloom. And the longing you once cursed becomes proof that your soul still remembers something your mind cannot explain. Destined love is not about possession. It's about presence. And sometimes, the most sacred form of presence is learning to hold space for someone in your heart, even when they are not in your arms. When you stop chasing and start trusting, you step into the divine rhythm where all things real find their way back. Not because you forced it, but because you aligned with it. Do you feel the deeper purpose behind your separation? If this resonates with you, declare it with faith in the comments. I trust the journey. Separation is sacred. 6. Eternal love is an archetype from the collective unconscious. The longing for eternal love isn't just a fantasy. It's a deep archetype rooted in the collective unconscious of all humanity. Carl Jung believed that archetypes are not inventions of the mind, but ancient patterns that live within us, guiding how we experience life, emotion, and connection. The idea of a forever love, something sacred, destined, and unbreakable, appears in every culture, every myth, every age. It's the story of souls that remember each other beyond time, beyond form. But Jung also warned that this archetype must not be lived blindly. If we chase the image of perfect love without awareness, we risk falling into projection. We may confuse chemistry for destiny, or mistake longing for true spiritual alignment. That's where the spiritual awakening begins. When we encounter someone who activates this archetype within us, the experience is not simply romantic, it's transformational. It tears open the veil between the conscious and unconscious. It brings light to the shadow. It initiates the soul. Real eternal love is not a static fairy tale. It's a fire that burns away illusion. It invites us to confront the deepest parts of ourselves, the wounded child, the unmet needs, the unconscious beliefs about love and worth. This kind of connection demands that we grow. It reveals our projections, our fears, and the parts of ourselves we've kept hidden. It doesn't come to complete us, but to awaken us. When two souls are truly destined, they don't just fall into harmony, they collide into truth. They trigger inner change. Jung once said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." These soul-deep relationships become mirrors, showing us not who the other person is, but who we really are beneath our defenses. That's why many people describe fated love as overwhelming or even painful at first. It doesn't play by the rules of ordinary logic. It brings synchronicities, dreams, emotional intensity, and inexplicable connection. But its purpose is never just about staying together. Its higher purpose is awakening, becoming more whole, more conscious, more free. Spiritual wisdom teaches that eternal love cannot be found outside until it is awakened inside. It begins with the sacred union of your own inner masculine and feminine, your ego and your soul, your light and your shadow. Only when you've met yourself on that level can you truly meet another without illusion. That's when love becomes not just passion, but presence. Not just attraction, but transformation. The spiritual awakening that comes from eternal love isn't about fairy tale endings. It's about the deep remembering of the soul. And through this remembering, you don't just love another, you become love itself. Don't forget to subscribe for more spiritual wisdom on how timeless archetypes like eternal love can guide your personal transformation. 7. True love transcends time, ego, and logic. When two souls are truly destined, no amount of time, silence, or distance can sever the connection. This is not a fleeting emotion. It's a spiritual bond that lives beyond logic. Carl Jung believed that deep relationships are never random. Through his concept of synchronicity, he explained that meaningful coincidences are messages from the unconscious, pointing to a greater intelligence guiding us toward what we are meant to encounter. When two souls recognize each other, it's not because of familiarity in this lifetime alone, but because something within them has remembered a deeper truth. True love like this transforms you. It doesn't just soothe your heart, it awakens your soul. It calls you out of your patterns and into your healing. You stop craving shallow connections because this love has touched a part of you nothing else could reach. You begin to see that your longing is not simply for the person, but for the version of yourself that only this connection seems to activate. Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." But with a soul bond, fate is not just a passive experience, it becomes a path of spiritual awakening. There's a story of a woman named Sarah who met Daniel during a 2-day retreat. Though strangers, their connection felt ancient. They spoke as if picking up a conversation started lifetimes ago. After the retreat, they lost touch for over 5 years. No messages, no updates, but neither forgot. Both went through major transformations. Careers shifted, old identities fell away, spiritual practices deepened. And then one day, without planning, Daniel reached out. The timing was no coincidence. Their reunion wasn't about going back to where they left off. It was about beginning again, from a higher place. They weren't the same people anymore. They had grown into the love they once only glimpsed. This is what happens when a bond is rooted in the soul, not the ego. It's not about possession or constant presence. It's about evolution. Sometimes separation is necessary for expansion. Distance allows each person to face their shadows, to grow individually, to break illusions of codependency. The connection remains, but it asks you to trust, to surrender control, and to honor divine timing. Carl Jung taught that love isn't just an emotion, it's a force that reveals what is unconscious. The person you love may be the one who forces you to meet yourself most honestly. Soul connections aren't always easy. They aren't always convenient, but they are sacred. They break you open, not to destroy you, but to rebuild you as someone more whole. If you've met someone like this, and circumstances pulled you apart, don't see it as the end. See it as an initiation. Let the pain teach you. Let the silence stretch you. Let the space between you grow something inside of you that wouldn't have grown otherwise. Because if two souls are truly destined, they will not just find each other again, they will return as truer, wiser, more awakened versions of themselves. That is the true journey of love through the lens of Carl Jung. Not to complete each other, but to become complete within and then meet again. If this message touched your soul, type in the comments, "I believe in divine love that transcends time and awakens my spirit." And remember, if two souls are truly destined, no distance, no silence, no time can keep them apart forever. What is meant for you will always find its way back, often when you least expect it, but most need it. Trust in the timing, trust in the journey, and trust in the deeper wisdom that guides your soul. If this message spoke to your heart, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. And make sure to turn on the notification bell so you never miss a moment of insight, healing, and spiritual truth. Your journey is sacred, and we're honored to walk it with you. Awakening made you tired of people. Carl Jung says it's a sign of this deeper shift. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Carl Jung. Have you ever wondered why awakening feels so lonely? Why the more conscious you become, the more distant you feel from the world around you? You're not broken, you're evolving. In this video, we'll explore a powerful truth Carl Jung understood deeply. When you outgrow illusions, you often outgrow people too. But this isn't a loss. It's a sacred shift back to your true self. If you felt the exhaustion of pretending, the silence after walking away, or the strange peace that follows it all, you're exactly where you need to be. Comment below and share your experience. Have you felt this shift? And don't forget to subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom so you never miss these soul-deep conversations. 1. Carl Jung's concept of individuation explains loneliness. Carl Jung called it individuation, the sacred and often painful journey of becoming who you truly are by releasing who the world conditioned you to be. But no one tells you how raw it feels. It's not a grand revelation filled with light and joy. It's a slow shedding, a quiet unraveling. As the false self dissolves, along with all the identities, roles, and performances you adopted to feel safe, you begin to lose your sense of belonging in the very spaces that once defined you. Relationships shift. The people who once felt like home now feel foreign. You hear their words, but they echo hollow in your chest. You're not angry with them. You're not better than them. You've just stopped betraying your own soul to fit into a life that no longer reflects your truth. That's what nobody prepares you for, the grief that comes with spiritual awakening. Because it's not just about gaining awareness. It's about watching everything that once held you together begin to fall apart. You'll sit among old friends and feel like a stranger. You'll smile because you remember how, not because you feel like it. And all the while, your soul quietly whispers for depth, for truth, for something real. You'll begin to notice that the things you used to brush off now feel unbearable, and the discomfort you used to numb now screams to be heard. But in that discomfort, spiritual wisdom blooms. Carl Jung believed this internal death was not the end, but the beginning proof that your soul is waking up. And when your soul begins to wake up, your entire energy recalibrates. You stop chasing what drains you. You lose interest in empty conversations, approval seeking, and the exhausting need to be understood. It's not arrogance, it's survival. You pull back, not because you've grown cold, but because the noise has become unbearable. Your spirit longs for silence, for honesty, for peace. You begin to realize that solitude is not the same as loneliness. It's where you meet yourself again, where your nervous system, fried from years of pleasing, proving, and performing, finally begins to rest. And in that stillness, you start to remember who you were before the world told you who to be. I once knew a woman who was the life of every room. She was praised for her brightness, her kindness, her ability to carry everyone else's weight. But she told me that every time she left a gathering, she felt emptier than before. So one day, she stopped. She deleted the group chats. She started journaling, meditating, walking alone without her phone. Friends accused her of being distant, cold, and selfish. But in truth, she was simply coming home to herself. She wasn't losing her light. She was reclaiming it. That's what awakening looks like. It's subtle, often invisible to the outside world, but it changes everything. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But that privilege doesn't come without cost. It requires the death of who you are not. It asks you to question everything, your friendships, your values, even your own emotions. Suddenly, the love you once clung to reveals itself as codependency. The laughter you once shared feels like armor. And the life you worked so hard to build no longer fits the soul that's emerging. You don't just mourn people. You mourn versions of yourself. The one who tolerated chaos, who swallowed her truth, who abandoned herself in the name of harmony. You grieve for the years spent sleeping through life, numb and disconnected, chasing validation instead of freedom. And yet, in that grief, there is sacred beauty. Every tear waters the roots of a more authentic existence. Every quiet moment becomes a bridge back to your essence. And as you shed layers, what once felt like loneliness becomes solitude. What once felt like silence becomes sanctuary. What once felt like loss becomes the most honest freedom you've ever known. Spiritual wisdom teaches you to hold the paradox, to feel whole but alone, clear but unseen, heavy but more alive than ever. The ache in your heart is not something to fix. It's space being cleared for something holy. You are being called into higher alignment, toward people who don't drain you, but fill you, toward conversations that don't distract, but heal, toward love that doesn't require a performance, but welcomes your presence. And though the path is narrow, though your heart may ache and your mind may doubt, every step you take toward truth is a step back to your soul. That's the real awakening, not a dream, not a vision, but a deep remembering that who you truly are was never lost, only buried beneath the noise. Comment below. I choose authenticity if you're ready to embrace your individuation journey and let go of who you were told to be. 2. Awakening changes your frequency and creates emotional distance. Spiritual awakening does not begin with fireworks or fanfare. It begins with quiet tension, a discomfort you can't name, a sense that something no longer fits, like a shirt you've worn your whole life that suddenly itches your skin. You sit in a room with familiar faces, hear familiar laughter, but something inside you doesn't rise to meet it anymore. It isn't superiority. It isn't judgment. It's something deeper, a dissonance between your soul and your surroundings. Conversations that once felt like home now feel like foreign languages. You try to stay present, to be who you've always been, but your spirit recoils at the effort. You're not aligned with that old emotional wavelength anymore, and no matter how much you try to squeeze yourself back into that mold, something within resists. It's not rejection of people, it's recognition of self. This recognition isn't loud, but it's powerful. It reveals itself in how your body reacts to surface-level talk. Gossip that used to entertain you now makes your heart sink. Complaints that used to connect you to others now feel like poison in your energy field. You begin to notice the noise, not the volume of people's voices, but the emptiness within their words. People speak, but they say nothing. You listen, but there's no nourishment. You nod politely, but inside, your soul grows restless. It isn't about being better than anyone. It's about being attuned to something deeper, something more real. Your soul is craving truth, depth, resonance, and you can't find that in small talk or social performance. You're starting to see that you were never meant to just fit in. You were meant to wake up. This shift brings with it an emotional distance. It feels like you're drifting, but you're not drifting away from people. You're being called back to yourself. This inward pull is not isolation, it's initiation. You are being stripped of roles, identities, and attachments that no longer serve the truth of who you are. It feels like loss, but it's alignment. The more you step into your truth, the more the world you once knew begins to fall away, not because it's wrong, but because it no longer matches your vibration. Carl Jung wrote, "Loneliness does not come from having no people around you, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important." And that's exactly what happens when you start to speak a different emotional language, one that only a few will understand. That language is presence, truth, soul. You begin to notice who depletes your energy and who amplifies your light, who only hears your words and who feels your meaning, who connects to your past and who sees your future. There is a sacred space that opens between who you were and who you're becoming, and at first, it feels like a void. But in truth, it is a sanctuary, a womb between identities, the stillness before the storm of transformation. And even though this space can feel unbearably quiet, unbearably empty, it is in this silence that your soul begins to breathe. You're not falling apart, you're falling inward. And in that falling, you are being reborn. Your nervous system is shedding years of chaos disguised as connection. Your spirit is learning that peace is not something you have to earn through performance. It is your natural state. You no longer chase love that makes you question your worth. You no longer tolerate relationships that demand you shrink to be accepted. This is not bitterness. This is clarity. You're no longer available for anything that disturbs your frequency. You are no longer at the mercy of environments that force you to betray your truth for the sake of fitting in. You are not retreating from the world. You are simply redefining the terms under which you allow the world to enter your life. Let the silence linger. Let the distance stretch. Let loneliness refine you. Because every disconnection is a sacred invitation to reconnect with yourself, with your soul, with truth. You are not breaking down. You are breaking through. You are not alone. You are alone with purpose. You are shedding illusions, removing noise, and preparing for the rare kind of connection that honors who you truly are. One day, the people who meet you will not meet the mask. They will meet your frequency. They will not respond to your words. They will respond to your presence. They will not reflect who you were. They will mirror who you've become. And until that moment arrives, honor the distance. It is not a punishment. It is your awakening. Have you ever noticed your relationship shifting after a spiritual awakening? If so, share your experience in the comments. Your story might help someone feel less alone. And if you're still navigating that emotional distance, comment below. I'm learning to honor my new frequency to affirm your journey. Let's grow together in this space of truth and transformation. 3. The real drain is not people. It's pretending to be someone you're not. You're not tired because the world is unkind. You're tired because your spiritual essence is no longer willing to be edited just to fit in. There comes a point in every awakening journey when your soul refuses to keep playing the role it never auditioned for. You've spent years being agreeable, staying quiet to avoid conflict, shaping yourself into someone digestible so others could be comfortable. You've laughed at jokes that made your spirit wince, nodded in conversations that didn't align with your truth, smiled when all you really wanted was space to breathe. This kind of exhaustion doesn't come from social burnout. It comes from spiritual betrayal. It's the fatigue of constantly choosing peace on the outside while there's a war inside. You're not withdrawing from people because you dislike them. You're stepping back because you finally started listening to the deeper voice within the one that's been whispering, "This isn't who you are." Carl Jung once said that individuation is the process by which a person becomes a psychological individual, that is, a separate, indivisible unity, or whole. That process, though beautiful in theory, is brutal in practice. It's the collapse of false identities, the crumbling of old patterns, the slow peeling away of the masks you wore to feel accepted. The pain isn't in the change, it's in the resistance to it. Your nervous system, long trained to seek safety through validation, now rebels when you choose truth over performance. You feel the tension in your body when someone expects the old version of you, the one who always said yes, who always showed up, who kept the peace at any cost. But your spirit has evolved. It has grown beyond those survival strategies. And with that growth comes discomfort. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because you're finally doing what's right for you. It's confusing at first. You cancel plans, and the guilt creeps in. You say no, and your mind races with imaginary explanations. You choose stillness over stimulation, and suddenly the silence feels deafening. But that silence is sacred. That loneliness is not a void. It's clarity. You're no longer leaking your energy into performances that feed others, but starve you. You're no longer giving fragments of yourself away, just to earn a seat at tables you don't even want to be at. What's falling away isn't connection, it's codependency. What's dissolving isn't love, it's attachment based on roles you were never meant to play. And yes, people will be confused. They've built expectations around the character you used to play, not the person you actually are. But you owe them no explanation for your healing. Every time you choose solitude over social obligation, every time you speak your truth instead of pleasing the room, every time you prioritize your inner peace over outer appearance, you reclaim a piece of your soul. Jung also said, the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. And that's exactly what you're doing. You're meeting yourself beyond the masks, beyond the noise, beyond the performance. This isn't about being antisocial. It's about becoming whole. You're not tired of people. You're tired of hiding. Tired of translating your soul into language that others can tolerate. Tired of bending to fit molds you've outgrown. And in that sacred tiredness, something new begins. A deeper spiritual rhythm. A life built not on performance, but on presence. A way of being that no longer drains, but restores. If this message speaks to your soul, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever felt drained not by people, but by the pressure to be someone you're not? Let's talk about it below and continue uncovering what it really means to live in your truth. 4. Shadow work deepens self-awareness and sensitivity. Shadow work is not some mystical theory reserved for spiritual elitists. It is the raw, unfiltered reality of what happens when your soul begins to awaken. It doesn't come gently. It comes like a storm, ripping through everything you thought you knew about yourself. Suddenly, you're not just expanding into light. You're being dragged into the corners you spent years avoiding. The shadow isn't made of evil. It's made of everything you were told to hide. Your rage, your shame, your guilt, your unmet needs, your tears behind closed doors. As the layers peel back, you realize that what you thought was your personality was actually your protection. Carl Jung said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." That's exactly what's unfolding. You're not just waking up. You're remembering who you were before the world told you to forget. As you begin to walk this path, a strange thing happens. You start to feel everything. Not just your emotions, but everyone else's too. You sit across from someone, and you hear their words, but your soul picks up something else entirely. You hear joy, but feel fear. You see a smile, but sense anxiety. You listen to complaints, but underneath it all, you feel a hunger for love, for peace, for understanding. You're not becoming sensitive, you're becoming honest. This level of awareness is a side effect of spiritual depth. The more you see through your own mask, the more clearly you see through everyone else's. And that's when the exhaustion begins. The parties feel shallow. The small talk feels like static. The crowds feel like poison. It's not social anxiety, it's soul recognition. Your spirit is no longer interested in noise, it's craving nourishment. You've outgrown surfaces and begun craving the ocean floor. You sit in a room full of people, but feel completely alone, not because you lack connection, but because your soul refuses to settle for anything fake. You begin walking away, not because you're cold, but because your nervous system demands stillness. You no longer have the energy to pretend, to perform, to please. You crave solitude like medicine. You begin saying no without guilt. You choose silence over chaos, truth over acceptance, discomfort over betrayal. And that's not pride, it's spiritual clarity. This is the soul reclaiming its power. You're not trying to escape others, you're trying to return to yourself. Shadow integration doesn't mean becoming flawless. It means facing your flaws without shame. You stop blaming. You stop outsourcing your worth. You look your wounds in the face and hold them like lost children returning home. You understand your triggers, not to suppress them, but to learn from them. Every time you're hurt, you lean in rather than lash out. Every time you're misunderstood, you speak less and listen more. You're learning that healing isn't loud, it's sacred. And this inner transformation unlocks something even more profound: compassion. You no longer look at people and see enemies or irritants. You see survival. You see fear masquerading as arrogance, wounds dressed up as ego. You see how people hide not to deceive, but to endure. And your heart opens. You no longer take things personally because you realize that very little was ever about you. You begin to soften, not out of weakness, but out of wisdom. Even the ones who hurt you become mirrors, not to reflect your pain, but to reveal your power. You realize that every soul is fighting its own battle, and most of them are fighting blind. And somehow, knowing that makes you kinder. Your awakening stops being a personal achievement and becomes a quiet revolution. Your soul no longer wants to dominate, it wants to liberate. And so, you move through the world, less reactive, more rooted, less attached, more aware. This is what transformation feels like, not glamorous, not easy, but deeply real. Because in a world addicted to performance, your authenticity becomes your rebellion. And the soul, once silenced, finally begins to sing. Do you feel your sensitivity growing as your self-awareness deepens? Shadow work is not weakness, it's courage. If you recognize this transformation within yourself, affirm it in the comments below. I embrace my shadow and grow in truth. 5. Your nervous system is evolving alongside your consciousness. Awakening isn't just something that happens in your mind. It's not just about new thoughts or spiritual beliefs. It runs deeper than that into your nervous system, your physical body, and your energetic field. As your consciousness rises, your body begins to respond. You start to notice how certain environments make you tense, how your heart races in rooms filled with noise or surface-level chatter, and how exhausted you feel after even small conversations. This is not a weakness or social anxiety. This is your nervous system evolving to meet the sensitivity of your expanding awareness. Carl Jung once said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." And that pain often manifests physically before your mind can make sense of it. Your system is becoming more attuned to energy, to frequency, to authenticity. What once felt normal, gossip, chaos, meaningless busyness, now feels unbearable. Not because you're superior or judgmental, but because you're no longer aligned with it. The people and places that don't match your new vibration feel heavy. You're not becoming distant, you're becoming precise. This shift in sensitivity can be confusing at first. It often feels like loneliness, like you're pulling away from everything you once knew. But in reality, your body is trying to protect you from overstimulation as it learns to operate in a higher state of consciousness. Your nervous system is shedding years, maybe even decades, of noise and conditioning. And just like muscles after a workout, it needs time to rest and adjust. There's a woman named Elena who used to be deeply social, always surrounded by people. After a retreat that awakened something within her, she came back home and felt like a stranger in her own life. Her usual routines exhausted her. Her friends' conversations felt shallow. She tried to force herself to engage like she used to, but her body resisted. Eventually, she stopped resisting too. She started honoring her new rhythm, and in that silence, she found herself again. Carl Jung's teachings on individuation remind us that becoming whole means breaking away from what is false. And sometimes, what is false isn't just a mask we wear, it's the energy we've tolerated. It's the relationships we've outgrown. It's the noise we once called normal. So when your nervous system begins to reject what you used to accept, it's not regression. It's refinement. It's your soul making space for truth. Your sensitivity is not a flaw. It's a compass. It tells you when something feels off, even if you can't explain it. It guides you away from the loud and shallow, toward the deep and real. And as you keep honoring that truth, even when it makes you tired, even when it makes you lonely, you're building a kind of strength that the world rarely sees. Energetic integrity. This process of awakening through the body is sacred. It requires grace, patience, and trust. Your nervous system is not betraying you. It's guiding you toward peace, toward clarity, toward a life that no longer drains you, but nourishes you. If this message resonates with your journey, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and tap the notification bell so you never miss powerful insights like this. Your nervous system is evolving for your highest good. Comment below, I am aligning with my new energetic self. To affirm your transformation and inspire others on the same path. 6. You begin attracting more authentic, energetically aligned relationships. As you begin to heal, there's an invisible shift that starts within you, one that doesn't announce itself loudly, but changes everything about the way you relate to the world. You no longer feel the urge to prove your worth, impress others, or win the approval of people who were never truly available to receive the real you. Something deep inside the soul starts to rise above the noise of the ego. The masks you once wore begin to feel suffocating, and instead of trying to entertain others or belong at any cost, you find yourself craving authenticity, craving stillness, craving something that speaks to the core of your being rather than to your insecurities. This is not weakness. This is power. This is the sacred turning point of spiritual awakening, when your energy field begins to refine itself and silently filters out anything or anyone that only existed to feed your need for external validation. Without even trying, your presence becomes more honest, and in that honesty, you become more powerful. But this transition does not come without discomfort. When you stop performing, the dynamic changes. Certain people start to drift away, not because you've become distant, but because the bond was never built on truth, only on the version of you they were comfortable with. When that performance ends, the illusion collapses. It's in these moments that solitude makes its entrance not as punishment, but as divine preparation. You may find yourself surrounded by silence, but that silence is not emptiness. It is sacred ground. It is where you begin to hear the whispers of your soul more clearly than the fears that once guided your decisions. In this space, you begin to discern the difference between loneliness and alignment. You recognize that being alone doesn't mean being disconnected. It means being connected to what's real, what's eternal, and what has always been within you. Jung's wisdom reminds us that true loneliness comes not from solitude, but from the inability to speak your soul's language with those around you. And now, you're refusing to speak in betrayal of yourself. As this sacred silence stretches, your energy begins to broadcast a new frequency. No longer do you emit fear, desperation, or the longing to be seen. Instead, you radiate calm, sovereignty, and completeness. And when you carry that kind of soul-level wholeness, you don't need to chase anything that's meant for you, is drawn to you naturally. Invitations may stop coming. Texts may go unanswered. But your soul, wise beyond the mind, knows this is the clearing. This is the sacred pruning before the blossoming. It's the quiet before a deeper connection blooms, not a louder one, but a more aligned one. A soul-to-soul resonance that cannot be forced or faked. What follows is not popularity, but truth. What comes next is not noise, but depth. Real connection arrives like a quiet sunrise. It doesn't need to announce itself because its presence is undeniable. The people who appear after this recalibration feel different. There's a peacefulness in their presence, a clarity in their words, a gentle recognition that does not drain you, but restores you. You don't have to shrink, dim your light, or translate yourself into a language that distorts your soul. These new relationships are not based on performance, but presence. They don't need you to impress, entertain, or wear a mask. They simply hold space for you to be. You feel safe, not because they rescue you, but because they mirror back the strength, the healing, and the wholeness you fought to reclaim. This is what spiritual wisdom looks like in motion, not just a concept, but a lived experience where your healed self becomes the compass for your new reality. And so you allow the process to unfold. You stop running back to what wounded you, no matter how familiar it feels. You no longer fill the void with distractions or noise. You surrender to the silence and trust that your soul is doing the work. You are no longer attracting people to fill your emptiness. You are drawing in reflections of your light. You understand that this is not a loss, but a liberation. It is not the end, but the sacred beginning. The beginning of something true. The beginning of relationships that honor the real you. The beginning of a life where the soul finally leads, and everything that arrives is not just seen, but deeply felt. If this message speaks to your soul, take a deep breath and declare it now. I am ready for aligned, soul-nourishing connections. I trust what is meant for me will find me. 7. True awakening means wholeness, not superiority. Spiritual awakening is not about becoming superior to others. It's about becoming whole within yourself. The real journey begins when you stop trying to escape your pain and start embracing it as part of your story. Your spiritual path is not meant to make you feel above anyone else. That feeling of being more conscious, more aware, or more enlightened than others is not true wisdom. It's the trap of the spiritual ego. And the ego doesn't disappear just because you meditate or say affirmations. It simply puts on a new mask, often a holier one. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." That means the parts of you that you've ignored, rejected, or tried to spiritually bypass, the shame, the guilt, the inner child still grieving, these are not blocks to awakening. They are the doorway. The real transformation happens not when you rise above your humanity, but when you integrate it. You stop chasing the idea of perfection and start honoring your wounds as sacred. When you come into wholeness, your energy becomes stable. You no longer feel the need to prove anything. You are no longer triggered by people who don't get it, because you realize they're walking their own path, just like you once did. You don't need to control outcomes or convince anyone to change. Instead, your peace speaks for itself. You begin to attract people not through effort, but through presence, not through status, but through sincerity. You also begin to see that the roles you once played, the people pleaser, the overachiever, the fixer, were survival tactics, not your truth. The more you awaken, the less interested you become in playing those roles. You stop reacting from old wounds and start responding from clarity. Conversations that once excited you now feel empty. Environments that once felt like home now feel misaligned. And it's not because you're better than others. It's because you're no longer abandoning yourself to belong. This shift isn't loud. It doesn't look dramatic. It's subtle. You find yourself sitting in silence more. You feel less urgency to be understood. You're not running away from the world, but you're no longer ruled by it either. You become rooted in something deeper, your own essence. And from this grounded state, you emit a calm, loving, magnetic energy. Some will be drawn to it. Others will misunderstand it. But you no longer take it personally. You've stopped living to be received. You're living to be real. Wholeness is when your inner child, your present self, and your higher self are all sitting at the same table, finally seen, finally heard, finally loved. You are not fragmented. You are not pretending. You are simply being. And in that being, there is power. A quiet, unshakable power. Not because you have risen above the world, but because you have descended into the depths of your own soul and found peace even there. That is the essence of true spiritual awakening. To affirm your dedication to true awakening, declare your commitment to inner wholeness, not superiority. Comment below. I choose wholeness over ego. To honor your journey and inspire others to walk this path with humility, compassion, and truth. And maybe that's the part no one tells you, that awakening doesn't always feel like light and love at first. Sometimes it feels like distance, like silence, like pulling away from the noise so you can finally hear your own soul. But this shift isn't disconnection, it's realignment. You're not losing people, you're finding yourself. If this message spoke to something deep within you, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who may need it, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. Tap the notification bell so you never miss a moment of truth, healing, and awakening. Your journey is sacred, and we're honored to walk it with you.